I'm from Sri Jalaram Temple in Greenford. We go and feed 5 times a week to homeless people in town, in the city. We pay nearly 70, 80 pounds ULEZ charge. And that's the money which could go to buy more food to feed those people. Why are the charities not exempt from this?
Well, firstly, thank you for the work you do feeding the homeless, and I know many temples across London, gurdwaras, mosques, churches do so as well, and we should recognise the huge work of the faith communities here. In relation to the ULEZ, Manchuk, there are exemptions for charities in relation to the Ultra Low Emission Zone and small businesses, and we're working on plans for low-income families. When I was on here last time, a caller rang in and he was unhappy because he was a sole trader and wasn't registered with VAT, so wasn't eligible for the diesel scrappage scheme that I've set up. And James, you'll be pleased to know, as a result of what he said to me, we're changing the rules to allow sole traders as well to be eligible for the diesel scrappage scheme, because he made a very powerful point. He's not registered as a limited company.
You still need to be able to afford to change vehicle, though. Well,
what we're going to do is two things. One is we will give you some monies towards scrapping your other vehicle, and you'll get help towards getting a new vehicle if you want to do so.
But secondly,
there's different schemes. There's different monies for depending on what you are. But
you're still going to run a loss. You've got a plumber who's already 25 quid a day down before he even gets into his...
Back a step, though, which is the reason why we're doing this, though. It's very important, Manchuk, to remind you and callers why we're doing this policy. This is a bold policy, I accept, because we've got a air quality crisis in London, leading to thousands of premature deaths in our city, leading to children having stunted, underdeveloped lungs forever, and adults with a whole host of health issues, from asthma to dementia to cancer to heart disease. And it's the poorest Londoners who suffer the worst air, who own the fewest cars. So I accept, for some people who can't change their vehicle, it may be, if they still want to come into central London, a price they've got to pay. But actually, the evidence is, since we've announced this policy, there are fewer and fewer non-compliant vehicles coming in. And when we've done the checks on the roadside, the quality of air has been improving. So, I'm not going to apologise for trying to clean up the air in London.
You don't need to, but could you allow charities like Manchuk's to be exempt from the charge?
Oh, well, listen, apply to the diesel scrappage scheme and we'll see what we can do. There are some exemptions for those who live inside the ULEZ area. What we can't do...
But this is a charitable exemption. It's fairly straightforward. Charities that are coming in and out of London to feed the homeless or to help Londoners.
There can't be a complete exemption. What we can do, though, is, notwithstanding the zero assistance from government, we've got a London diesel scrappage scheme, and it will help charities, micro businesses, sole traders and others who need assistance. And we're also working on plans to help low-income families as well.
When I'm going to bring up the girl, Ella Adukisi Deborah. This was your friend, and I don't want to force you to relive memories that must have been very difficult for you. But when she passed away, it must have been a really, really difficult period for all of your classmates to live through that. Were you immediately clear at the time that it was due to air pollution? Because, of course, that wasn't immediately obvious to many of us in London. And I've had that, as I say, I've had Ella's mother on my show in the past. If memory serves me correctly, I have spoken to her, I think, twice. But it's fascinating that air pollution could take a young life. Was she 13 at the time?
She was 9.
9. So how did you react? And were you immediately aware it was air pollution?
No, I don't think anyone in our community had really immediately thought that it could be related to air pollution. At the time, everyone very much thought that it was just her asthma, because she had a very severe case of asthma. And it was only later, when figures about air pollution in London were released, that people started to think that her asthma could have been worsened by air pollution. And so at the time, it was all very much a shock for us, but our community was not really aware of the dangers of air pollution, despite living in a very highly polluted area, because air pollution is something that you cannot see. So the dangers of it are hidden, and it's not something that you immediately are aware of.
Yeah, I want to remind parents that when you're walking, especially to school with young children in the school rush, air pollution sits at exactly the kind of height where young children are breathing from, because, of course, it doesn't rise up fully. It sits at kind of adult hip and knee length. And so young children are even more vulnerable to that than adults are, which is an incredibly serious situation to be in. What would you like listeners to take away from this conversation that they can do to help your campaign?
Well, a big thing that you can do right now is follow us on our social medias.
Could you name your accounts?
So our accounts are @chokedup_UK on both Twitter and Instagram, and we're relatively active on those. Another thing that listeners can do to really help us in achieving our goals of stronger clean air legislation is emailing your MPs, talking to your MPs about how clean air is a really important issue to you and you're really worried about it, and trying to pressure them to make change in government where it really matters.